Well, I figure I can do a castover of my own map in a 1v1 context for the purpose of getting a castover to you and it not taking very long at all. At least I would expect a 1 versus 1 with this AI to end in glorious quickness. We have a Zerg against a Terran. Now, for this demonstration, we can take a look at the Zerg themselves. They are Burnt Umber. And the Terran are some blank text. This looks like it might be a new color. And I have not yet added them to the enum, so I will quickly take a look at which new colors were added and tell you what one it might be. Ah, this is Neon Carrot, almost certainly. So, there you go. Neon Carrot as our Terran player. Burnt Umber as our Zerg player. Burnt Umber, a color reserved almost exclusively for Ackmed, so I'm expecting great things, and I'm calling the winner now. It will be the Zerg. Will Ackmed win? So, obviously for the purposes of keeping you in suspense, I will not comment on the improvement, or potentially lack thereof, of the AI Sunken Colony defenses, and whether or not those have improved since the last time I did a castover. Because I like to keep you in suspense. We'll see how that plays out. We do have a barracks coming out from this Terran player, which does make me suspect that he's liable to go for some early action. He's instantly thrown a bunch of SCVs, a bunch of Masons, on the reservoir, which is kind of interesting. Because he's going barracks and then instantly going for this much gas. Kind of makes me think he's gone air behind this. We'll see how it goes. We do have a larval colony and a creep colony and almost a structure going down behind the hatchery expansion. And there's a scrapyard behind it. Okay, so this structure does take a little bit longer to build than the conventional factories. However, it obviously holds some very powerful units. As we do get the double larval colony, and again, almost a structure, but the AI is very dumb and can't figure out how to spend its money. We'll have to wait and see. Will this be one of those situations where you try to do a castover, but then the AI is too dumb, so you can't? Hydrock Den. Okay, this is kind of interesting, because when you think about Hydralisks and Skithercores, you don't necessarily assume that those are going to be very effective against barracks units. The one caveat there is that Blackjacks and Aspirants don't fare massively well against ranged units of any kind. Particularly, Skithercores are a bit tankier than the average flyer, like they're a bit tankier than the Mutalisk, for example. So, you might expect the... or not tankier than the Mutalisk, tankier than the Nathracore, that's what I meant to say. The range of those units are going to be pretty effective against things like Blackjacks, which obviously get progressively weaker as they get lower in HP. They have very high base stats, but you have to be able to keep them at high health values if you want them to succeed. As an example. Nothing is being produced from the scrapyard yet, though, so I don't actually know what the composition of this particular player will be. And we are seeing some additional colonies, some gas, some hydras. So it'll be interesting to see what this player has in mind with his double larval opener. He's got plenty of larvae to use for units. And he's morphing a creep colony for an eventual attack on the right side. And theoretically, one of these 3 colonies, or maybe 2 of these 4 colonies, almost, will be defenses. We'll see. With this base being set up, however, it doesn't really seem like the Terran is interested in a timing of any sort. So these early Hydras will likely do a little bit of damage. They'll accomplish something. Perhaps butchering just a couple of Masons or something to that effect. I do like how the Zerg patrol around with Oviliths a little bit more actively than they did in vanilla. I don't actually know what causes this. I think it's the capt expand AI command code that tells them to increase the size of their... basically, another layer of AI regions is considered theirs to some degree. And that is something that specifically happens with... Owned. That is something that specifically happens with Zerg, to a degree that it doesn't happen, to the same degree anyway, with the other races. It looks like it was just a quick scrap going on. We are seeing some instant overwhelm, but hey, he disrupted mining for a brief period of time. So there's some value in that. That's pretty funny. We are starting to see blackjacks indeed, so I'm actually not that worried for this player, particularly if he's able to get some Bactylisks behind his army. That actually should be pretty solid. It'd be pretty proper. I do, of course, wonder what went wrong with my my colony logic, because he's got 4 colonies and nothing morphed from them. 5 if you count the one in the main. And he's also getting a hatchery, which means he had plenty of minerals to do it. And presumably he's got gas because he's building units out of... he's got Iral Iris tech, and he's building units from his Hydrock Den. So, what gives? He's also gone for a 3rd. There's the Sunken. Love to see it. It's even placed in a reasonable position, actually, just by the ramp. This one over here is a little bit more questionable, but we are finally starting to see some usage of colonies. It's a bit hit or miss, a bit inconsistent, like everything else that relies on lard. The 3rd base is pretty cheeky. It's not something that anybody would reasonably expect by 6 minutes, but unless you're used to the AI timings anyway. And it'll be particularly interesting to me to see what happens behind all of these hatcheries. Obviously, these must be some sort of like weird explicit call for hatcheries, because there's the larva protection to say, hey, if I have 7 larvae or something like that, I should not build any more production structures. And he definitely has not had below that in quite a while, so interesting to see where that goes. But he's got plenty of supply, and he's got quite a few units. He's actually just ships in the night over here between him and the Neon Carrot Terran. And with this base nearing completion, I suspect some more defenders will be queued up for that as well. We have tier 3 being ascended to. He's still only got the Hydrock Den, however. So it'll be another thing to keep track of anyway, is to see, you know, what exactly he's doing with tech, with regards to tech. Even more hatcheries. Now he's actually using some of his larvae, so it's a little bit more excusable. Even if it still doesn't make that much sense to me. Maybe you have to lower the threshold for idle larvae in the code. The Shaman is very, very effective with his composition. It's deceptively so, because obviously it heals the Blackjacks to keep their base stats high, to keep their movement speed and attack speed high. And it also heals cohorts for twice as much. Even so, the number of units here should easily overwhelm the enemies that we see. The Neon Carrot units will not be long for this world. And indeed, they've already started to fall. There's even a Hydralisk over here making fun of the floating scrapyard, which is a classic bug with Terrans. They just float their structures and never land them because the AI is dumb and was written by Lard. Watchdog is attempting to be repaired, but it doesn't seem to be happening because they actually chased away the Mason that was doing the repairing, which is pretty interesting. This attack force shouldn't be able to close the game, but it is doing a bit of damage. Albeit, again, the only lasting damage that we've seen in terms of infrastructure is like maybe 2 or 3 Mason kills, as well as the dead Watchdog, so bearing that in mind. And there's going to be a couple of more Masons dead. Claymore comes out. Yeah, this force should almost certainly be taken care of. However, we are now nearing like double-digit terms of Masons, so in terms of dead Masons. So that is actually pretty effective, especially when you consider the 3rd base being up and running now. It's not like massively booming, but he's still got plenty of stuff, and he's even started to get Niduses, so units reinforcing the main from the natural, much easier. They'll start to get Niduses over here fairly shortly, and probably morph some of these colonies, although I say probably he's only morphed one in his natural, so it's hard to say. You know how it is. AI don't listen. And again, with the maximum tier tech, there's clearly still some various issues. But he is spending all of his money. Not all of his larvae, but all of his money. And it should be enough to continue pushing this guy back. Interesting decision to not repair the bunker. I guess he decided he didn't need it. That's another thing that seems to be new to the current game state, is that they sometimes just ignore structures that are burning down. Maybe they were logged repairing something else, though. So. Reinforcements getting intercepted by some forward-facing attackers from Neon Carrot means that this base will be very easily defended again. Walk through it. Oh! Owned. That's a lot of hydras, dude. Someday we'll have the technology necessary to tell the AI to not attack a structure that it can't beat. And then, well, then I really will have to lower their income multipliers because they'll actually be able to call off attacks, return, respond to threats in different ways, all that stuff. This is pretty hilarious. I don't know why they've decided to go so aggro. I think we still have to get Veek to reduce the range of workers being aggroed, since currently it is a little bit too much. And then he's also dealing with the vanilla code, interfering with his commands to leash the workers, which doesn't always happen. I'm kind of surprised the Claymore was not the one to get attacked there, considering it was only at 18 HP. These are these little things that we're trying to optimize for and fix. I like that Ackmed just came out and started burning that man to death. This scrapyard is still not finished. Another dumb bug. I thought there was an add-on over here, but I guess I was wrong. It was down here. Okay. He's building more down there. Whatever. That's something. And a fourth going down in this position of all places is pretty ballsy. He doesn't actually have any units nearby to defend his base from Ackmed, so maybe Ackmed will slowly burn that down and carry his allies to victory. Carry his Neon Carrot men. He's fighting himself, dude. You're fighting Burnt Umber. You're supposed to be on the same team. I probably should have an infested Ackmed unit just for the sake of seeing where that goes. Okay, now we have a Zorki's Shroud, which is pretty dangerous. We did see Lakizilisks earlier. And we should see Saryustalets, and with Oth's to Lava Form tech as well, an Ultrac Cavern wouldn't be out of the question. Still a bit slow to adapt to the available tech that it has, which is pretty interesting. Science Facility means, well, we might actually see this Terran be somewhat competitive. Unlike that Lakizalisk, which just like in true AI fashion, decided to spin. It's a lot of questionable decisions and anti-focus happening now with kiting, which should definitely be looked into. I'm sure Veek is taking his notes as we speak, as I speak. But it seems to specifically hurt short-range units that also are flingy units, which is basically Skithercore, Mutalisk, Nathercore. You lose a lot of DPS with those units. Now, if we could just override the Lurker management, that would be perfect, because obviously Lakizilisks would be pretty banging if they didn't just continuously unburrow and kill themselves. They're literally committing suicide. That one actually almost was competent. And now this is where the lack of colony mutation is going to get the better of him, I feel like. But we do have some tech up, and we do have two other bases where this one came from. So even if this base does go down, the idea that it would go down for good seems kind of wishful thinking. Or the idea that it would be very impactful seems wishful thinking. Claymores are fairly cost efficient. The reason for their high DPS, their high performance, is that they do require a decent amount of resources, and they are in the Shadow Branch. I would probably resolve or reduce some of their combat effectiveness based on their tech tree acquisition if they came from the Iron Foundry, for example, and then I would also scale down their resources. That is still something I intend to do, but it would require replacing the Claymore with something else, or removing the feature station as an add-on and just making it so that the Siren is trainable from Tier 1, which I'm not 100% sure makes the most sense. So. Midas Canal will, once again, allow for that quick reinforcement we talked about. And over here is where I think the military campaign ends for the Terrans. I don't suspect that these creep colonies will make a massive dent, but they are stopping the ranged units from getting close enough to the sunk and actually kill it. And that is assisting a couple of other things insofar as, you know, obviously the attack force coming in is working wonders. We do have some colonies happening over here. Sunken colony being morphed at the 4th and the 5th, respectively. Wouldn't be surprised if he retakes the 3rd. Would also not be surprised if he opts to just go for here. Kind of surprised the Terrans haven't bothered with another expansion. It's more likely that I just missed the Mason attempt and it just got shot out of the sky, basically. They still haven't been able to put this base to bed. It's not really giving back too much right now. It's mostly a map control thing, and particularly if they can get a Nidus Canal down, that would obviously assist. Either one of these bases would just allow that cross-map travel that you don't often see. Claymores have a unique hard counter against Lakizilisks insofar as if they can take advantage of terrain, like right over here by the water. You don't have the same degree of ability to travel the projectile across anything that is unpathable. And also, I like the fact that these Rillarokors are currently decolliding inside the... whatever this is. I don't know how many there were, but I think that was a Claymore that died. I suppose units that are low flight should probably spawn Rillisks. Maybe only if they are on unpathable tiles, I'm not sure. That could be an interesting combo. But Rillisks just make a bit more sense for units that can hover at all. Unless I decide to make a third unit that has low flight and is a brood spawn type unit. that would be pretty funny, but probably overkill, let's be honest. Speaking of overkill, however, there's a pretty decent amount of kills on these Claymores. I saw like 20 or something on one of these. 16. Yeah, that was it. Maybe the 21 died already. But whether or not they get pushed back here is an open question. I think with the Convolisks constantly reinforcing the army, it's obviously been quite difficult for the Claymores and company to make meaningful progress, and there's even more of them coming. And again, this is before the Nidus Canal comes out, obviously, so that is expected to change relatively soon. The Leveril Pond coming out, as well as a Quasrock Pool for good measure. Gorgel Swamp, Vithrathond, excuse me. Yeah, this guy's got tech for days. No Elazal Arbor yet, but not really any need for it either. Particularly with the Convolisks themselves holding down the fort and pushing him back pretty reliably. This is where Harakans will shine. Ackmed, as soon as he can finish decolliding, can continue killing all of these Rillarokors. Fuck him up! I'm amazed Ackmed did not die. But you know what? That's pretty epic. Now they'll finally kill this Sunken. Or will they? There we go. That took way more punishment than I was expecting it to take, to be honest. And even as we speak, more units pouring forth. I wonder where the Rillarokors are coming from on this side. They must have, like... I guess it's just like the occasional unit, like over here, yeah. And just gets annihilated. Almost. Ah, you kited. What an idiot. See, now we're starting to see some colony morphs, which tells me that whatever was stopping the AI from properly producing its units, like if I pan over here, oh, I do still see some creep colonies. Okay, never mind. Something was, some request was just satisfied and freed up a lot of shit for the AI, basically. We do have some idle workers who seem to have been summoned to another base. I think this is a bug with the Nidus pathfinding, where they can't tell that a Nidus Canal would be the fastest way forward, so they break. I'm not really 100% sure. If I SIIU, and yeah, this one is seemingly assigned over here, yeah. So they've been assigned to this base, probably because they ran out of sufficient resources at this, yeah. They ran out of resources and they decided not to path here. Normally they would just move here, I think, or maybe they wouldn't move and they would stay mining. Either way, they wouldn't just freeze, and I think the problem here is that they're not actually finding a Nidus Canal to the target, which is not because the Nidus Canal doesn't exist, it's just because, for whatever reason, they... Some broken-ass code, okay? That's all I'll say. Although, speaking of broken-ass code, I don't actually see any combat units anymore. Did they all run away? Have they all died? Oh, there we go. Unless these are all secret drilliths. Let's find out. This is a hilarious mining path. What the fuck is going on over here? Well, as usual, the AI impresses. Breaks in new and interesting ways. I thought maybe we reached CCMU in a 1v1 and I was going to start shitting myself, but I'm pretty sure that's not what's happened. We do have an anti-Chthon, however. And that, my friends, that is epic. That means that this guy has not only survived long enough to get a biotic base down, he's actually used it. And that's impressive. I'm not sure if it'll actually be good enough to get him through here. He's starting to position his units correctly, but no, he was just out of range for that blackjack to respawn. He's not really benefiting from the stuff right now, basically. And now he's all lamped. This is where the unit has kited away from every opportunity and is slowly being eaten alive. Withhold the mirror, my man. So here come all of the reinforcements. It looks like maybe they just used a production cycle on workers instead of units or something. I don't really know what happened there. But for a moment, there was silence. And then there were more units being thrown away. The tech keeps getting bigger and more fearsome, however, so I actually would expect some Gazithalors to come out, and that would probably seal the deal regarding things like Claymores, just because they can they would have to actually get close enough to the Gazithalors to attack, and with the front line that this AI is propagating, it seems kind of like a death sentence. It's just a matter of actually getting them out there. That would be one answer to the call, to the ends. Oh, I suppose maybe if this Claymore attack force actually goes through, we might actually see this base get dropped. Have to wait and see, of course. There we go. The tides are turning now, even though there's a lot of Claymores stacked up on top of each other. There's not really that much AoE to take advantage of that here. No more Lakizilisks, for example, to burrow down and respond. A pretty deadly stack of Claymores, to be honest. Even some Sirens with a lot of attacks. There's the Gazithalor. A Gazithalor. Taras came out to say hi and then die. It was enough to actually destabilize the reinforcements, however. This base might actually die. I mean, you can see the minimap. A lot of units are being produced to fight this. May have shocked him out of his slumber, where he was not attacking nearly as frequently as he could have. And is now sending some additional forces down. It's really a matter of whether or not the Claymores can survive long enough. They have the heavy armor. They do have 2 armor as well. So they're in pretty good hands in that respect. But it looks like this attack force may have finally whittled out. Burnt away. Oh shit, Cascathalor! My homie. There you go. Did you need to hear anything else? Meanwhile, some more units have descended. No ion cannons, right? I'm not missing anything. However, with this attack force and with some of these higher tier units out, you could pretty safely say that Terran's days are numbered. And obviously he's been stuck on 2 bases this whole time. One of which is nearly empty in terms of minerals. So, yeah. Aw, man, you just had to kill yourself. I can't believe there's a color called Neon Carrot. Owned. Can he live? Yes, he can. A little bit of kiting backwards here and there. Never hurt a man. Meanwhile, scouting with the scrapyard. We love to see it. I am kind of confused as to what the AI is doing, but I guess the Zerg were just getting yet another attack force out. That seems to be it. Owned. Yeah, this attack force might actually seal the deal, considering all of this guy's units are up top, and he's just got a couple of... Well, he's got a decent number of production structures, but I don't think he has enough of a stream to come out. Like, okay, Tarask has come out, and spinning over here for some reason. This is complex pathfinding, guys. Brood War can't handle that. This is pretty funny, though. How did that one get down there? What a disaster. Well, maybe I need to widen these ramps. That might be the answer, unironically. That's the pathfinding issue, clearly. But, you know, you're in your base. Your main just got annihilated. A couple of Cascathalors walking down. Wow, he's got 4. Not a unhappy number. And yeah, they were able to drive him back now. Oh, he can fit through there. He was just an idiot. That means this guy can do that too. They're all just dummies. Yeah, getting slammed in the head over and over again by Cascathalor projectiles is not really that's not really my idea of a nice fate. At this point, I think it's pretty likely to result in death. They're doing a reasonable job of trying to kite around them, but you know. I do like the Tarask trying to move in. Pretty thematic for that kind of unit. All right, the Zerg have finally woken up and ended our suffering, ended our Neon Carrots suffering as well. It wasn't quite as fast-paced as I thought it would be, and there was that weird downtime in between, which signifies that sometimes the AI are just a bit goofy. However, Zerg reigned supreme. I predicted Ackmed would win, and this is Ackmed's color. Ackmed's chosen. The other guy tried to build some Ackmeds, but it didn't count. Didn't matter as much. And is it any surprise, realistically speaking? Guy doesn't even know how to land his own structures. Well, I hope this was entertaining. We didn't quite fix the sunken colony stuff, or the colony stuff in general. And I have a feeling that that's why the Nidus canals were requested less often, because the AI is too busy trying to answer its requests for colonies. It's just dumb, so it doesn't. However, we still saw some very large numbers of units, and we saw some decent variety in the Zerg tech tree. And hey, we confirmed that, in fact, the structures come out from these goofball Terrans. In fact, they do use the Scrapyard Tier 3 stuff, at least the Biotic Base. And they probably would have used it more if they had actually expanded, which they didn't. But you know how it is. So yeah, that's my cast over. Terrans got annihilated. It's over.